So, what do you guys want to talk about? Dana White just had his special announcement about the next 4 UFC pay-per-views. Let's talk about them. You had, I would say, most of the things we already knew. You had a few things that were kind of, one major thing that was spoiled because a venue decided to plaster an unannounced event already on, their building. You had a few things that were, no-brainers. Unless something crazy happened that Robert Whittaker was going to come out and get a title fight. We knew that Adesanya was going to be getting that title fight. Yeah, one major thing that was kind of a surprise. I did not expect that Masvidal was going to take the fight against Burns. I thought that's just something he wanted to stay away from completely. But let's get into this. So UFC 284, we got Islam Makhachev versus Alexander Volkanovski. I gotta tell you that I'm not super excited for this fight. Like, out of all of the fights that I just feel like I know what's gonna happen, this and the John Jones fight are pretty much a lock. Everything else I'm pretty kind of up in the air about. I have my predictions, but I could see it going both ways. I don't see this fight going any other way besides Islam Makhachev just dominating Volkanovski. Volkanovski has never shown that he is a great wrestler. He's shown he's got good takedown defense against people who don't have great takedowns. But that's not the same thing as saying you have great takedown defense against someone who is at the level of wrestling, of combat sambo that Makhachev has. I think that is just a league of difference. Basically like someone from the minor leagues in baseball keeping against the greats in baseball. There's a reason why there's different leagues and why you have to work your way up there, and you can't learn wrestling overnight. Cliche, it's been said over and over again, but you have weight classes also for a reason. Volkanovski is not moving up to 55. He is still talking about Josh Emmett and Yair Rodriguez, talking about how he's excited for them to set themselves apart. He's excited for them to win the interim title because he understands when he goes back down there, that makes the fight bigger. That's because he's planning on going back down to 45. He's not bulking up, putting on actual muscle, and becoming a 55er. And while yet people will say, oh, but he was a really big rugby player. Don't you remember those pictures of him being a rugby player? He's not a rugby player anymore. He has develops his body in his training, and him and his team have decided that 45 is the best place for him to compete for a reason, because that's where he's best suited at. People like talk about a pound for pound list where you talk about what that actually is if every fighter was the same weight and around the same size, whose skill is the best? You don't have that here. You have a guy who is bigger. You have a guy who is naturally going to be bigger here in Makhachev. You can say, oh, well, Volkan looked, he was pretty big in that stare-off. Yeah, he was big because he, had more weight on him at 55. But that's not the same thing as having the muscle that you need to be at that weight. There's no way that you can decide to be a 55er and actually train your body to be that and also decide to be at 45. You can't actually at the elite level do that. You can at lower levels. This is why Anderson Silva wasn't fighting the top upper echelon when he was fighting against the light heavyweights. He was fighting against Stephan Bonners and the Forrest Griffins of the world. Yeah, you do have some times where you have like people like BJ Penn coming up and beating Matt Hughes, but Matt Hughes was pretty one-dimensional. Never was a great stand-up fighter. Never claimed to be a great stand-up fighter. Everyone knew what Matt Hughes wanted to do and what his bread and butter was. If BJ Penn was able to stop that, which he was great at that area as well, that would able to work out. But you saw when BJ Penn came up with, Rory McDonald, GSP, those guys were just too big for him. There's a reason why we have weight classes. And Makhachev, he's a big 55er who is a dominant wrestler, who has great striking, who has the ability to strike with you, get you uncomfortable, get you in a spot, and then take you down. And once he takes you down, he changed wrestling over and over again. If he can't get you on a single leg, he's going to go for the double. And then he's going to get to the body lock. And once he gets you to the body lock, he's going to either try to get behind you and take you down, or he's going to force you down that way. And I don't see Makhachev having too hard of a time with that. Having too hard of a time, I guess a lot of people would think, oh, he fell on a takedown, or Volkanovski was able to get up. Sure. He's not going to get every takedown, and Volkanovski is going to be able to get up. And it's going to be a lot of work for him to get up only to get taken back down again. And I don't think he's going to get up too many times. I think he might get up twice. I think that's the max that he gets off the ground. He gets up probably early in the first round because they're both fresh. He's got all this energy. He's a great fighter. He knows how to work, in that cage, use that cage to his advantage, get up against it, get him off of him. But you got to do that over and over again against Makhachev. And you got to be able to do that while he's punching, while he's kicking, while he's defending great. People weren't able to do that against Khabib when they knew that's basically all he would do. He's going to throw a big overhand rights and take you down. And I don't think Makhachev's takedowns are as good as Khabib's, but his setups are better as far as the type of takedowns that Makhachev does. Khabib was a power double. Get in, get a good body position, and then take it from there. Makhachev can do it all. Khabib can too, but he had ways that he preferred. Makhachev likes to set things up with his striking, which means that depending on which strikes he's using, what position you're in, is how he's going to come in. It's going to be very different. And I don't see Volkanovski having the ability to be able to really do much there. I'm sorry. I wish Volk was fighting either Yair or Emmett. And I wish Makhachev was fighting someone in his weight class. Yeah, some of these would be Khabib recycles. Some of these would be Oliveira recycles. But I'd be a little more excited just because they're bigger. And, it would be a test for him just to see how great he is. But, I mean, the only reason why I'm okay with this fight is because there's no clear, you have to have this person fight at 155. You don't have that. So I'll be excited with you guys. I'll have my popcorn ready. I'll be right there for every punch and kick and every grapple. But I can pretty much tell you how this one's going to go. Next, you have Josh Emmett versus Yair Rodriguez. This one I am excited for. I think Yair has this. I think that Josh Emmett is one of those fighters where you have to be worried about his power. And that is what makes him so dangerous. He's a great fighter, great technical fighter. Team Alpha Male makes some great prospects out there. But I think the biggest thing with Emmett is if you are hesitant, if his power puts you off your game, that's where he has the best chance of success. You have to start acting different because you're worried about his power. And that changes your game, which makes his game more effective. I don't think Yair is going to be that type of fighter. He's one of those fighters that comes at you, gives everything he's got. He's not, you can say, yeah, he was scared of, a certain unnamed Russian who may have left the sport from not getting enough, chances out there. But you gotta look at Rodriguez once he actually gets into the cage. He is balls to the walls, giving everything he's got. And I just think his pressure and his ability to absorb damage is going to get him through those first two really hard rounds. And with the pressure that he's going to put on Emmett, I think Emmett's going to start wilting. And I think around the fourth round, Yair is just going to be too much for him. I think probably, TKO, fourth round. Doctors gotta stop this one. Or maybe he ends up being able to put, Emmett down and then with some ground and pound after that. But I don't. It's a close fight because obviously, Emmett can take him out in one punch. Emmett can take him out with a flurry of punches. I just don't see Emmett being able to hold up for the long haul. And if this is able to go into the third, fourth round, I think Rodriguez is gonna start running away from this fight. And that's pretty much the fight card. I just gave you the entire UFC 284 fight card. The rest of it is filled with good fights. Fights that, they'll be good on the night. You'll be one of those things where people are saying, oh, this isn't a good fight card. And at the end of the night, Dana's going, oh, look how great this is. You guys are all talking stuff about this fight card. It happens every time. Oh, yeah, I mean, they're good fights once they get on there. But the stories leading up to it, the name value isn't there to get you excited about it beforehand. I understand when I watch a UFC card, I'm going to get the highest level of MMA. Not all the time, but most of the time. I mean, you got Jack Della versus Randy Brown. You got Justin Tafa versus Parker Porter. You got Jimmy Crute versus Alonzo Minfield. Minfield and Crute, I mean, my OGs. I'm old. So I like my fighters. I've been getting up there. I like, still seeing them go, still seeing them bang, but pay-per-view? 5-fight pay-per-view, that's the card. I feel like this is more like a boxing card where it's really top heavy. You got a huge main event, potentially maybe two, some boxing cards, and everything else is kind of just filler. It's not like those lopsided boxing cards where, obviously one fighter is meant to win here. That's one great thing about the UFC is that, these fights are going to be competitive. They put together great fights, and at the end of the day, you're going to go, yes, that was great. But leading into it, I'm not really excited. I can't lie. I can't tell you. Yeah, I can't wait for Jack Della Maddalena versus Randy Brown. I mean, being honest with you, I can't recall a Jack Della Maddalena fight. I mean, I know Randy Brown, and I watch almost every card. I can't recall who this man is. So that just tells you what the kind of caliber that we're dealing with here. But that is very different with UFC 285. UFC 285 taking place in Vegas. Jon Jones' long-awaited, not return, I was going to say return, but long-awaited comeuppance from light heavyweight to heavyweight. I mean, the only thing that sucks about this is that it would have been way better with Francis. People like Richard Schaefer will get on Arrow's show and talk about, oh, this is the better fight. This is the more dangerous fight. I don't think so. I'm excited for it because it is Jon Jones. There's so many variables that are unknown. Is Jon Jones going to look like he did in his last few light heavyweights fights? Is he actually falling off? Does he need to be motivated? Does heavyweight motivate him? I think Jon Jones is a great fighter who gets it done. And I think that Ciryl Gane has a big hole in his game. And I think this is the UFC way of giving Jon Jones a heavyweight title. Jon Jones is now, currently, right now, since they stripped Francis Ngannou of the heavyweight title, the heavyweight champion. This is just the ceremony. This is him going against a guy who cannot wrestle, against Jon Jones, who is an elite athlete. The best mixed martial artist of all time. The guy who took down Daniel Cormier on many occasions. I want to say in the two fights that they had, I think he took him down 3 times. An Olympic level wrestler. And do I think that Ciryl Gane was able to learn high enough level of wrestling in the year since Francis Ngannou took him down really easily to stop Jon Jones? No, I do not think that he was able to do that. I think that is a silly thing to even think about, to even think that Ciryl Gane has more of a puncher's chance. That's what he has. He has a chance to knock out Jon Jones because he is a heavyweight who can knock you out in one punch or a kick. That's where you got Ciryl Gane at. Pretty much what you have every Jon Jones opponent's at. They have the chance of a knockout because this is MMA with 4-ounce gloves and anything can happen. I just don't see it happening. I see Jon Jones coming in the first 2 rounds and pretty much taking down Ciryl Gane, beating him up pretty good. And if Ciryl is able to make it out of the first 2 rounds, the 3rd round, Jon Jones will start playing with his meat. I see him doing what he does against a lot of fighters and deciding, hey, I'm pretty good at everything, and I want to show you that I can beat you at your own game. So once I have you tired, I'm going to do that. The only thing that would make me worried is that John Jones has that opinion pretty early on, because John Jones, he just came out saying that he believes that God does not want him to lose. I'm hoping that's more of a mentality where he's just like, I'm too good to lose. I'm not going to let myself lose. Not that I believe the universe isn't going to let me lose, because if that's the case, I can see John Jones coming out here saying, you're a kickboxer. I'm a better kickboxer. I think that would be a mistake. And I think the only way that John Jones loses this, is if he makes the mistake of being too conceited. And I don't think John Jones has really shown that in his career. I think in a way he has. Outside of the cage, I think he's shown that. But inside of the cage, I think he is a competitor. And he knows how big this is for him. I think John Jones is in the money side of his career. John Jones is not going to go in there and do anything that's going to make it so he is not going to go away with the biggest paycheck in his next fight. And I think he's going to go the safe route, take down Ciryl Gane, smash in his face, try to get the stoppage early, and then maybe once he's got him tired enough, he might play with his meat at that point in time. I could see that. After that, we got Valentina Shevchenko versus Alexa Grasso. I mean, who is not excited about this fight? Obviously, Valentina is more than likely the win here. I think that Alexa Grasso, while she's fought in... Okay, she hasn't really fought anyone really to get up there. She beat Joanne Wood, who I originally thought back in her Invicta days was going to be a buzzsaw and destroy everyone. But it hasn't turned out that way. I think a lot of things in her personal life got in the way. She beat Macy Barber. She beat Macy Barber. Macy Barber is not anyone who I think is that really impressive. I think that she's a hype because she's a talker, but a lot of people were really trying to throw her in early, saying that she was going to be the one who they're throwing Valentina Shevchenko. And can you please tell me which fight you saw that she had this potential in? Viviana Araújo, I think, was the last person that Grasso beat. I'm pretty sure of that one. And that's we're at the point where we're throwing in just names with Valentina. Obviously, I would have liked to see the rematch with Valentina, but with that, the fact that Valentina won the last few rounds pretty handily just showed me that it looked like she got surprised early on in that fight, and she had to deal with some adversity. And I think that's all that was. I think that if you run that back 20 times, I think Valentina wins those 20 times. I think that was the one chance that she had, was that Valentina probably overlooked her and got caught early, in some exchanges. And I think that, I don't think that would happen again. If you look at the Nunes, when she came back, once she was motivated to come back with that fight against Pena, that I think that you saw a very motivated Nunes that showed that there was levels to this game. And I think that's going to be the same thing with Valentina. I was actually surprised when I was watching this announcement. I thought they were going to announce the Nunes fight for the next fight card after that, or even UFC 287, because I thought that they were going to be trying to put Nunes pretty close with Valentina to try to set up that fight. That was what the talk of the town was, and that's really the only fight that I'm excited for either fight. Well, there's some fights coming up for Nunes that I'm excited for, but there's nothing I'm excited for Valentina. I'm excited to see Valentina show how great Valentina is, and obviously anything can happen, because one of these days someone is going to have Valentina's number. Valentina is either going to start going down, which I don't see anytime soon, or one of these fighters is going to break through. It's just what happens after you've been champ for a while. You got people watching you all the time. Valentina is training for everyone. Each fight is a new training camp for her. Meanwhile, everyone is training for Valentina. You are training for your opponent, and you're saying, hey, this is what Valentina does. Let's work on this, get better at this. When we fight Valentina, we're better. But I do think that if Valentina won 50-45, I don't think anyone would be like, oh, that surprised me. I think if Valentina came out and destroyed her, I don't think anyone would be like, oh, that's surprising. I think at this point, Valentina's kind of expected that that's going to happen. And I think that is what is kind of dangerous. That's why I like watching fighters with long title reigns, because it's so dangerous when everyone is gunning for you and you have to be the one that stays on your game every single day. Every time you're at the gym, you have to make sure that you are motivated to fight. And man, I think that last fight, Valentina usually comes in with a chip on her shoulder after she has a tough fight. I mean, you look at the fight with Andrade, people were saying, oh, Valentina got taken down. Andrade is also, you got a chance. Valentina came up with a statement. And I'm looking forward to this fight because I'm going to feel really bad for Alexa Grasso, because I think Valentina's going to make a statement about El Grasso here. And man, but the rest of the card, I mean, this is a good card. You got Jalen Turner versus Dan Hooker. You got Jeff Neal versus Shavkat Rakhmonov. You got Bo Nichols versus Jamie Pickett. Can I tell you? I mean, Jalen Turner is a great fighter. And I feel, him and Dan Hooker are going to put on a show. I kind of feel like Dan, maybe he had too many wars. I mean, you have guys like Masvidal who's had downturns in the career and then came back to be pretty good. But I mean, I think Dan's going down here. I think Rakhmonov is the future. I think that the matchmakers want to keep that fight together, because I think they see that Rakhmonov is, obviously Jeff Neal's a dog in that fight. I think the matchmakers want this fight because this is going to be a showing for Rakhmonov. One, not many people are trying to take that fight. So the fact that Jeff is taking that fight probably makes it, pretty easy for the matchmakers to book that fight. But yeah, that's going to be a good fight right there. And Bo Nichols, man, this man is the truth. The only thing I have to say about Bo Nichols here is that he cannot fall in love with the striking. You see it too many times. I think that Khabib and Hamzat, Hamzat too. Khabib, maybe there's 40 and slip for a reason. Khabib and Makhachev, they have shown that if you stay with your wrestling, and Hamzat, if you stay with your wrestling, you're going to be able to do good. If you stay with your wrestling, you're going to be able to do good. And the fact that Bo Nichols is such a great striker, I think leads to dangerous temptations that, why do I need to wrestle? Now, so far, he's shown he's willing to mix it up and do both. And that's what you need to do. You need to be able to mix it up and do both. But yeah, you gotta call this for Bo Nichols. He's the real deal. I see this man going far. I see him being, hot shot for a title fight pretty soon, as long as people are willing to take the fights against him. I don't see too many people right now really giving him too many problems. So, Bo, he's got the world in front of him. All right. Looking over here at UFC 286. Man. UFC 286. Leon Edwards versus Kamaru Usman. What do you have to say? This is going to be a great fight. The rubber match. Usman won the first one. Usman was winning the second one. Edwards, that head kick, just beautiful. I was trying to think of a poetic way to say it, but it was just a beautiful last minutes, perfect technique. That's the best thing. A lot of people talk about, oh, luck. That was a beautiful setup with the feints, the fake, and then the head kick. Oh my God, that is technique. What I'm excited about here is that I think this match is going to be more competitive. I think that you did see Leon, that first round, he came in with a ball of energy and he wasn't able to sustain it. And maybe it was the altitude. Maybe that's what was going on. Maybe it was the nerves of being in the big spotlight. But he's the champ now. And he's got that energy knowing that, hey, I can win. Because he did. I think before he probably had a lot of, can I win? But He did. He won, and he looked very convincing when he did it. As far as that head kick, and that first round probably gave him a lot of motivation. I think, he saw the rest. You watch those fights back. You see the rest of the rounds. You see, it started being uncompetitive there. Usman was taking advantage and taking control of that fight. But I think that having that momentum of having won that fight, seeing how well you did in the first round, seeing that, no matter how the fight goes, you're still in there, that gives you that confidence. I think that's kind of what he was missing there. Everyone was talking about how he looked like he was dejected. So I think that the confidence was a big thing there. And now he's going to have that confidence, and he's going to be more prepared. And hey, let's also face it, Usman's getting older. He is not getting young, and Edwards is in his prime. So I think that also can, Usman's losing that confidence. Usman, just got knocked out. I think he's going to not be as unconfident because of how the fight went. It wasn't like a beatdown. It was a fight that he was winning pretty easily. And so I think he's still going to come in with that. But I think this is going to be a closer fight than a lot of people think. A lot of people are picking Usman, and I'm picking him as well. I think Usman is the better fighter here. But I would not be surprised if this comes out to be a dominating fight by Edwards. I mean, he's shown that he can, maybe not stop the takedowns, all of them, but he can stop some of them. And it only takes a few. It only takes, getting in there and getting your rhythm. So while I'm picking Usman, that's the official pick. I mean, I give me the right to change my mind as the fight gets closer, especially knowing about Usman's hand. But I'm going to pick Usman here, and I'm going to say he's going to do it by decision. He can definitely knock him out. He can get him down and beat him up. But I'm probably going to say it's going to be decisions because Edward is a great fighter. He's technical. He does everything right. And, while I would like to pick the underdog, I probably shouldn't, probably stop picking against Edwards. I think he's shown me enough now. I'm probably going to eat my words here again. But, man, yeah, I think Edwards really has this one. Oh, the co-main events. Justin Gaethje versus Rafael Fiziev. I mean, panties wet. I am excited for this one. This is one of those that's I guarantee you both fighters are going to tell you that it's going to be violent. I guarantee both fighters are going to get in there, and I guarantee both fighters are going to make sure that it's violent. These aren't fighters that step back. These aren't fighters that, I kind of hope it is. I kind of hope that this is not one of those type of fights. I hope Justin Gaethje comes in there and says, hey, I'm a pretty good wrestler. I haven't done it in the past, 10 years almost. Maybe I should start actually using that and becoming smart with my career because I can be one of the greatest of all times if I just stop going out there and standing and banging. He's gotten better. He started to put in some technique which showed improvements in his game. The one thing he didn't do is he did not start wrestling. Bo Nichols, look at Justin Gaethje and do not do what he does. Do not do it, okay? This is a fight that should be not as close as it is. You have two fighters I think are pretty close on the feet. Two fighters that can devastate each other, win in one punch, and they're also very durable. I probably give the slight edge to Gaethje, just because I think he's the more technical fighter, the more technical striker. But Fiziev is obviously put you on your ass pretty easily. But I think that if we get Justin Gaethje that decides that he's going to wrestle, I don't think this fight is very close. And that's sad that I don't think that that's going to happen. I think this is going to be a barn burner. And I think this is one of those fights where anyone can win. It's kind of a coin flip. I think that Justin Gaethje is more technical, so he's more likely to win. But why make it so close? What is the reason here? So you can be more exciting at the end of the day and you tell your grandkids, oh, I was so exciting. How about I was the champ? Isn't that way better to be able to tell your grandkids, to be able to, look back on, and instead of just saying I had some fun fights, isn't it better to say I'm the champion? And you have this one big thing that if you start correcting could actually get you to that title? What is going on? Come on. It drives me nuts. If you can't tell, it drives me a little nuts, okay? So, as I'm trying to get through here, open as the next one. Gunnar Nelson versus Daniel Rodriguez. Rodriguez is my dog. I thought Gunnar Nelson was going to be going a lot farther than he did, but he just showed that he had a ceiling, and Rodriguez is coming. I think he has. I don't see him as championship material yet, but this is one of those fights that he could come out and shine and actually get into that picture. And I don't think Gunnar Nelson is going to have much for him here. I don't think I think he's a warm body that's kind of just going to be presented for Rodriguez to finally show that he's going to step out and actually, come higher up on the card. I see this fight as maybe if he can beat Gunnar Nelson, I think he'll be a headliner on a fight night. I don't see him sliding in the cold main event on a pay-per-view, but I see this is like his last fight before he starts main eventing, cards, or at least co-main eventing on these fight nights instead of being the third fight on a pay-per-view. But Gunnar Nelson, can I tell you? I mean, I'm a big jiu-jitsu guy. I wouldn't say I was in love with Gunnar Nelson, but I mean, I had a crush on him for sure. I had a fighter crush on him. I really thought he was going to be one of the next guys, but did not turn out to be. Marvin Vettori versus Roman Dalaziz. I butchered that name. Jack Shore versus Makwan Akamini. I can see why, people, on the commentary team spend hours, learning these names for all these fighters, because some of these are pretty hard to say, especially on the fly, just reading these names. I mean, a lot of these people, when you actually see them, but and then what makes me sad is Makwan Akam. I'm not going to pronounce that name again, okay? He is actually a really good fighter, and I'm excited to see him against him and Jack Shore. I feel like this is going to be a breakout fight for him. Dark horses, as far as like making this card exciting, someone you're going to talk about after this fight, I think that's going to be one of them. Please don't prove me wrong, because this is my first time doing one of these predictions. But yeah, no, I see this man top 5 by the end of next year. That's where I think. We're gonna skip that. We're gonna take that out. All right. So UFC 287. Israel Adesanya versus Alex Pereira. Probably out of all the 4 fights coming up, all the 4 pay-per-views, I would say this is going to be the hardest one to pick. Obviously, Izzy is the better fighter, but Pereira can put him out. There you go. I would not have put this fight together. I would have had Whitaker come up here. I think once you lose to someone 3 times, I think you kind of got to earn your way back to them. I think once you lose to someone who's not been doing MMA for this long by knockout, I think that you really got to put yourself back up there. Yeah, normally I would be saying yes, he was a champion for so long, he deserves it, because he does deserve it. I'm just not, it's one of those things where other fighters also deserve it, and you've lost to him 3 times. This is also one of the weirdest things, because I think Whitaker obviously beats Pereira pretty easily. I think almost everyone is understanding that if Pereira fights anyone else almost in the top 10, but anyone else in the top 5, I think he loses. But I don't know about him and Izzy. I mean, this is kind of made me seem like I'm a downer. I kind of feel like I'm down on the UFC right now. I kind of feel like people are going to watch this and go, oh man, this guy is excited. I'm excited for all these. I just think there's been better options. That if I was booking these fights, there'd be better options over here. I mean, gosh, why not Hamzat? This is my thing. If you go, that guy would beat beat the champion. If he fought the champion, he'd beat the champion. He should be fighting for the champion. I think that's point blank. I think Whitaker should be fighting for this title because he's earned it. And I think the fact that everyone is under the understanding that if Hamzat fought either Adesanya or Pereira, he would be the middleweight champion. If the only thing that stops you from being the middleweight champion is the fact that you haven't got the title fight, then that should be your fight. That's you. That's where it should be. What really annoyed me is that Pereira called out Hamzat at 205. I get it. You would just, you just fought and you're saying you can't make 185. But the UFC is not making that fight. So what is that? That's like a fake tough man thing? Oh, I'm tough, so I'll challenge you to a fight that I know the UFC is not going to book at a weight class that you don't fight in because last time you fought was at 170. So let's fight at 205 where I'm not the champ at and means nothing and it's just a throwaway fight. Yeah, that's not going to happen. If you're really going to call someone out at your weight class where you're the champion at. Also call out Whitaker. But he did. That's the thing is I got to say is that he did call out Whitaker. He did say that if it wasn't going to be Adesanya, it's probably going to be Whitaker. So I do think there was some back and forth there. And I'm not saying he would not have taken that Whitaker fight. I'm not saying he wouldn't have taken the Hamzat fight. But I think Hamzat has shown, even because fighters seem like they're not taking that fight, and if you're not taking that fight, you should be the one fighting for the title. I think the way it should work is the UFC should say, hey, do you want to fight this guy? And the person goes no, then that person you said no to takes your ranking. That's how it should work. That way we stop getting these fighters no longer accepting fights. That is bothering me so much. That these fighters are not willing to come back over here and put the ladder down and fight these up-and-coming fighters because they're scared of them because they're like, oh, well, that's not good for my career because if I lose, then I'll lose out on this money. This is a sport. We should be treating this as a sport, and unfortunately, the UFC has allowed this to happen because they're also trying to make the most money out of this. And now I'm just complaining, but that's probably my least favorite thing about this sport is that it's not treated as a sport. It's treated as entertainment, and it should be treated as a sport where we have rankings matter, and you have to fight a guy if you're coming off of a loss. Obviously, if you're still going up, let's keep on going. But if you're coming off a loss, you should be fighting someone lower ranked than you. That's just how it should be. You're the 4th ranked guy. You lose against the 2nd ranked guy. Well, you should be fighting the 8th ranked guy. You're winning, you keep on going up, and if you're a 2nd ranked guy and the first ranked guy and the champion are in a fight, then okay, that's the only time you really fight someone lower. Obviously there's a reason if you gotta fight someone lower when you're coming up. Obviously someone's gonna be fighting someone lower because you can't fight this guy same rank as you, and it doesn't work that both guys are higher ranked than each other. But so many of these guys don't really fight. These 14th ranked guys, these unranked guys, and it's driving me absolutely nuts. That's my little rant for that. But yeah, this is a fight where it's being done because of the name value here. Adesanya versus Pereira makes the most money, so that's the fight that's going to happen. Because if Pereira fights anyone else, he's going to lose, and then you lose the fight between him and Izzy. That is not a reason to want to fight. You should not be like, I'm excited to have these two guys fight because if he fights anyone else, it's not going to happen. In that case, then he should not be fighting. All right. Masvidal versus Burns. Man, I am surprised because this is Masvidal's last really big fight. Burns is going to outclass him, beat him pretty easily, and that will be 4 fights in a row that Masvidal has lost. And I don't really see who is he going to fight after that. I mean, no one else in the top. I mean, maybe because he's a big name, someone will always want to fight him. Maybe that means he'll have to accept the fight. Maybe that's what will happen is that, because he's lost 4 fights in a row, he'll have to accept a fight against someone, younger and hungrier because he's got no other option. So that's kind of makes me excited. But Masvidal is a fighter who had a good run. Got a very lucky knee against Askren. I mean, that's any real fan understands that you have that fight happen 100 times. That's the one time that happened, and the other 99 times he gets taken down and beaten up. Maybe he'll have a rematch against Wonder Boy. That'd make me exciting, just because they're both at their age of their career, at the later stages, and that make it interesting instead of having them both fight against a young hungry guy. But this is Masvidal's last big fight, besides taking someone who he would definitely say no to right now. I don't think after he loses this fight he's going to be getting the top 5 anymore. I think this is it for Masvidal, and I'm surprised that he took it. I mean, this is a hard fight. This is Gilbert Burns, a dog. Someone who is very skilled, someone who can take him down and control him very easily there. Masvidal showed he has his whole career, not a great takedown defense. People like to talk about it like, oh, he stops takedowns against who? Against what top wrestlers is he stopping takedowns against? Please show me what top wrestler he was stopping these takedowns against. He's stopping these takedowns against fighters that are okay, but he's not stopping takedowns against the elite wrestlers. He stopped takedowns against Usman. Well, Usman wasn't really trying to take him down. Usman was fine holding him against the fence. It was a fight for Usman that worked out that way. Hey, I can control you pretty easily. You're offering me no resistance. I don't got to work too hard here. Do you think that if Masvidal was making the fight competitive, that Usman wouldn't actually take him down? It wasn't competitive. There was no needs for him to work more, and he was making it pretty easy, and Masvidal was providing no resistance. So, yeah, hold him against the fence, beat him up a little bit. Easy win. It's a late notice replacement. You didn't train for this guy. This guy doesn't have a gas tank. He also took the fight on a week's notice, so you're all good to go there. But yeah, I was surprised. It makes me respect Masvidal a little more. I mean, I have no respect for him. A guy, if you get 25 minutes with someone and you can do almost anything that you want, but they are also allowed to do almost anything they want to you, and after that 25 minutes, you go, well, I gotta beat you up when you're not expecting it. Yeah, you're a bitch. I'm sorry if anyone has done that before and they're like, oh, he's calling me a bitch. Yeah, I'm calling you a bitch too. That is bitch move. I don't know who is from the streets that would co-sign on that bitch move. If let's say you had the Bloods and the Crips coming together right now and they was like, hey, my dude's gonna beat up your dude, my dude's gonna beat up your dude, you know what would happen? Those two dudes would fight, and afterwards they'd have respect for each other. Even if they hated each other, they'd have respect for each other, because once you sit there and you actually fight, I grew up fighting, my whole life. Yeah, I've seen fights the whole time. Once you get stumped out, obviously there's whole grudges against like that. But if you guys actually have a fight, and at the end of that fight you guys are both able to walk away, what happens is you usually respect that man more. Obviously, there's things that were said there, but to then still be so petty that you have to sneak a man when he's not looking. You had 25 minutes. That was it. It's out of your system. That was your chance. Legally, and you got paid for it. Anyone who is as big of a bitch to try to attack someone when they're not looking coming out of a restaurant has no respect for me. But you got a little back taking this fight. I didn't think it was going to happen. I didn't know who was going to fight. He was going to hold out for someone big. But, I mean, I didn't know who it was going to be. You got the Conor fight. I was like, maybe, Conor's going to come up there. I could see that. I could see Conor going, I want an easy fight at 170. I mean, he's bulking up, looking pretty big. I hear he's going to take on Tony Ferguson. I hear he's going to take on Tony Ferguson. Tough. That's kind of a good fight for both fighters right there if that ends up being true. I mean, I don't really want to see him against Michael Chandler. I think Michael Chandler, man, that boy can get hit, but that boy can hit hard as well. And I think coming back, someone like Conor, you kind of want to. I think he's at the stage in his career where I think belts are done for him. I think he needs to look forward past I'm going to get a title. And I think he needs to look for fun fights that are good. I think it's kind of hard because, like I was saying, you want someone like Masvidal to start taking fights that are lower ranked. But Conor is obviously a special case just because of how big he is. Because Masvidal isn't headlining a pay-per-view right now against someone for a non-title fight. Conor, no matter who he fights, is headlining a pay-per-view because that's who Conor is. You got to understand when you're playing with different levels here, okay? And I think him versus someone like Michael Chandler, it'll be exciting and fun, but I think Michael Chandler starches him. I mean, I just kind of doesn't seem like he's that guy anymore. I think ever since the Khabib fight, like nothing I've seen of him has seemed impressive. He seemed like he's lost a lot. And maybe he'll get it back, but I don't want to see that against Michael Chandler because if he hasn't gotten it back yet, it's not going to be fun. I think that you see him against someone like Tony Ferguson, who, they're both getting up there in their careers as far as like athletically where they are motivationally. And I see that as something that's not too bad for either fighter. I think that if Conor beats him, it's a big punch and he puts down. It doesn't look horrible. Conor's able to get a few more punches in and then it's done. The referee jumps off of him. Or I see Tony being able to put too much pressure on him and kind of fading. I don't see anyone like just being completely destroyed by each other, and I think that's the kind of fight that they both need. Something where it's exciting, but the danger really isn't there for both of them. I mean, Ferguson was looking good against Chandler until he wasn't. Ferguson was looking good against Diaz until it got nasty and he was making bad decisions that are becoming, he's a fan favorite. But I think that's pretty much it as far as where that's at. But so those are the major announcements. Obviously, Dana didn't talk about the Conor one, but he did confirm, what was it, 2 days ago, yesterday, that was something that's been in the talks. And ever since then, they've been talking about Ferguson. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. Am I totally crazy? Should I be more excited for these fights? Do you think these fights are closer than, I'm making them seem? Or are they pretty no-brainers like I think most of them are? I'm excited. I mean, these are big fights. I'm glad these fights are getting announced. I think, you got champions that are dominant. It's hard to pick against them. You got someone like John Jones and someone who's got a kryptonite, spot like Cyril Gane. I think that's pretty easy to pick. But hey, let me know what you guys think.